This is considered by many to be some of the best evidence for Sasquatch there ever was. In terms of what I have here, it's a full-size frame from the Patterson film, approximately life-size, give or take an inch or two. And as you can see, this is a very, very big creature. I'm 6'5", weigh about 225 pounds. You can see her body density is much larger than mine. You'll also notice that the mouth is far lower on her face than it is on mine, for instance. You will also notice that this creature has breasts. Now that would have been a tremendous creative streak in terms of Roger Patterson constructing a gorilla suit, as it were, with breasts built in. It's not impossible to do, but why would you do that when the story of Bigfoot pretty much was built on a foundation of a male Sasquatch rather than a female? We can also see down here on the thigh that there appears to be a hernia.
Athletes get herniated muscles, and the hernia, when the muscle reaches a certain extension, causes it to bulge.
The hernia moves in perfect harmony with the contraction of the femur muscle as the creature is walking in the film.
And they believe that's what that is, something you wouldn't be able to attribute to a suit.
Janusz Prohaska, who was well known back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s for his ape costumes, said, and I quote, "If this is a man in a costume, then every single hair was glued to his body. Otherwise you would never have seen those muscles."
I've read all the accounts of its dismissal and so on and so forth. I'm not convinced by any of them. I still feel that the evidence, that what we call evidence, the canon of evidence, should include the Patterson-Gimlin film.
People say that's proven to have been a hoax, right? Well, no, it hasn't been proven, but that's the perception out there. So I don't raise that film anymore, and it's very sad, but raising it as evidence just gets you into a discussion about he says, she says, and claims and counterclaims. I think we should just put that film aside for now, get on with the really hard evidence, especially the tracks, and then one day that we can bring that film back and say, well, what we now know about the Sasquatch is there in that film. On the basis of seeing bear tracks, we say, yes, there are black bears in this area, or grizzly bears. And so this is same with the Sasquatch. This is an original. This is the best cast, actually, that my wife and I were able to make here on Vancouver Island. Unfortunately, between the time we found them and the time we got back with plaster, a hiker had stepped in it, so there's a bit of a boot print there. But other than that, it's just an awfully good cast, showing the large heel and the 5 toes. Here are a couple of casts of an immature Sasquatch from Washington State. And people often say, well, gee, if you got a young Sasquatch, the track would look like a human track, wouldn't it? Well, they don't, actually. One of the things quite common in Sasquatch tracks is the spreading of the toes. The Sasquatch foot seems to be, well, is much more flexible than the human foot, which is quite rigid by comparison. It's almost like the human hand, and then the toes quite commonly spread out like that. This is the largest cast in my collection. It's noteworthy for that point of view. It's also noteworthy because the big toe, the great toe, is quite divergent, sticking off to the side, which is very much an ape characteristic. Of course, in the great apes, the big toe is often straight out. In the Sasquatch, the big toe often diverges somewhat, and that's quite unhuman-like.
That's a gigantic cast. That's a
it's
massive
a very large track. There's a bit of slide in here. I'm sure that the heel actually started about there. But yes, yeah, this is an interesting cast because it shows another characteristic of the Sasquatch foot, and just as is shown in these young ones, and that is it is proportionately broader than the human foot.